There was no tomorrow for them, but Jonah knew that God is a God of grace. A compassionate God, a God slow to anger and full of love. A God who forgives and gives good things to people who don't deserve it. Jonah knew that God is a God of grace and that there is no person or circumstance so lost that God's grace cannot transform. As Jonah wanted the people of Nineveh to receive what they deserved, he fled from the mission entrusted to him because he knew that if he fulfilled it, there was a possibility that God would forgive them because he is a God of grace. He wanted them to continue being lost cases and receive their punishment. This fugitive prophet experienced firsthand the God who is kind and compassionate. His rebellious actions and stubborn attitude would have been enough for God to rightfully punish him severely. But God gives the rebellious prophet a second chance. As he embarks for Tarshish, God sends a storm that only calmed down when he was thrown into the sea. God also prepared a retreat for Jonah in the belly of a fish for 3 days all included, and from there, Jonah cried out to the Lord. And God gave him a second chance, because there is no person or circumstance so lost that grace of God cannot transform. In his grace, God gives second chances, even to rebellious people who do not want to share God's love. He is a kind and compassionate God who by his grace does not reject us at first, but forgives and restores. In chapter 3 of the book, Jonah is again commissioned to go to Nineveh. This time he does obey, although, as we later found out, his attitude had not changed at all. Jonah proclaims throughout the city the clear and forceful message. 579. Within 40 days Nineveh will be destroyed. He then leaves the city and settles on the outskirts of it to await God's severe judgment on Nineveh. But something surprising happened. The people believe Jonah's message and accept his guilt readily. They recognize that they deserve God's just sentence upon them. Although they know that they are clearly lost cases, they do not sit idly by, but appeal to the God of grace. In chapter 3, 7-9 we find the decree that the king of Nineveh established. No person or animal, whether sheep or cattle, shall taste any food, nor graze or drink water. On the contrary, the king orders that every person, along with his animals, mourn and cry out to God with all his strength. He likewise commands that everyone turn from his evil ways and his violent deeds. Who knows? Perhaps God will change his mind and appease his fierce anger, and we will not perish. The inhabitants of Nineveh knew that there was no tomorrow for them. The only thing that could save them was for God, who is a God of grace, to have compassion on them. The only thing that could save them, their only cartridge, their little plank of salvation, was precisely the grace of God. That is why they cried out with all their might, asking God for mercy in case God, in his grace, changed his intention to destroy them. And these guilty people, sentenced to death, undeserving of divine favor, people who had committed abominable and perverse acts, these who were a lost case, received the sublime grace of our great God,